What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the FN Studios. I am John Ramdeen alongside Robin Black. UFC 206 has taken a hit as former light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans, who was supposed to take part at UFC 205 in New York City. That fight got moved to 206. Now the fight's not happening. I'm actually not surprised because when we look at our Ontario Commission, if something smells stinky, there's a chance the fight's not happening.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on in this one, but you're right. The Ontario Commission, the Ontario Athletic Commission, or the Office of the Athletics Commissioner, however they want to call OAC, they've developed a very bad reputation for turning down basically
everything.
Almost everything. Their default is no to a fight. And that makes you suspicious when you've developed a reputation of being the hardest commission in the world to get a fight approved. And they seem to take some pride in that first, saying, well, it's for safety. But then over time,
arrogance.
Yeah, it's some arrogance. You talk to 5 or 6 of the smaller fight cards and fight companies that tried to put on cards, and they would propose 20, and he would approve 3. And I mean crazy shit. Like Adrian Woolley, who is a very high-level 125er, a great 125er.
Former TKO champion.
Yes.
George St. Pierre was also a TKO champion.
Yes, a fantastic fighter and a legend at the lighter weights. But he was supposed to fight Chris Kalades, who was an undefeated fighter who had beat everybody, was super legit, coached by TJ Grant's coach, like just super legit. And they just turned it down. No, absolutely not. They wouldn't look into it. They just refused. There's an arrogance to how they do business. They say, we're not doing it, and if you complain, I'll cancel your whole card. Just ridiculous stuff like that. So anyways, later on, Woolley and Kalades did fight. Kalades won, and Kalades now in the UFC. And their argument was, well, we know Adrian Woolley, we know how good he is, we don't know this guy. You know, when you don't know something, you can't arbitrarily turn it down. So they have developed absolutely the worst reputation for being unreasonable. Now, all of a sudden, the Rashad situation comes along, and this guy may have some irregularity that should be studied. But because their default knee-jerk reaction is to cancel all fights, this smells weird here. And in most cases, you don't say with three weeks to go, it's off, forget it, it's not happening. Most commissions won't do that. They'll say, go ahead, show us some other evidence, bring this to some other doctors, really get to the bottom of this. And to be fair, there was another time where you and I worked for the Score Fighting Series, which was a great show. They were turning down everything. And Sokaju was fighting in a co-main event, and there was an irregularity. And once we talked them into finally taking a second or a third opinion, it was found that there was something in his skull that was very normal, that happens in normal people and is of no risk, and so they did take it. What they should do in this case, rather than ban the fight, is say, bring us some more medical evidence. That's what Rashad deserves, that's what the UFC deserves, and that's what the fans deserve.
Tim Kennedy really trying to build his fan base. He says that Rashad Evans isn't fighting because he probably has brain damage. For Tim Kennedy, it seems like he just doesn't care.
I don't think he does. He doesn't seem to, which is fine. It's his life. It's his career. He can do what he wants. But these are your brothers, Tim Kennedy. You know, you fight in a world where you are each other's brother, you are each other's opponent, but you're also each other's partner. You don't have a fight without these other men. I know that the game of disrespecting your opponent has gotten out of control, but Tim Kennedy knows this. Rashad Evans is his brother. He's another guy who's involved in this beautiful special combat, and that's pretty rude. But you know, it seems in line with kind of how Tim Kennedy does his thing, and it's his life.
Now, and when you look at it, though, you have to be objective. And I know Tim Kennedy, he's been away from the game for quite some time, been probably preparing diligently to take on the former light heavyweight champion. So for the fight to not materialize, I'm sure it is frustrating for a fighter.
I'm sure it is frustrating for a fighter, but you know, this is part of the game. You know, you deal with what's in front of you and you make a strategy for how to fix it. And Tim Kennedy has been proposed other names, and there's talk that there will be somebody else in that position. So we shall see. But you know, Rashad Evans, if in fact he has any type of irregularity that upon further inspection, you know, a qualified doctor says you cannot fight, of course, you cannot fight. Yeah. We got to protect these guys. But irregularity means that we haven't yet figured out what it is. And he has the right, and he should have the right, to go in and provide indisputable evidence of what the situation is. And it sounds like the Office of the Athletic Commissioner in Ontario is not allowing that. It doesn't surprise me. That's in line with how they've done their thing.
Do you believe that as the sport continues to grow and continues to evolve, that some of these athletes will kind of take their own health into their own hands, constantly monitor their head and their body to make sure that surprises like this don't happen as they're full in training camp?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'm arguing for, enough time for Rashad, this is a guy who's dedicated his life to this art, and this means a lot to him. And if it turns out that he actually has something that won't allow him to fight, of course, you go off into the sunset. Your health, that's something you have to deal with your children and your future for the rest of your life. Fighters should know exactly what they're getting into, and I think that's something great about fighting is, we study head trauma, we talk about head trauma, we accept the risks, and if you're a young fighter now coming up and you say there is risk of damage, all of these fighters show you what they've been through and what this type dedication to this kind of thing has done to their bodies, and you still choose to do it, whether you choose to go work in a coal mine or you choose to work as a firefighter or you choose to do any type of risky thing that comes with it, danger, that's your choice. But it's good that we educate these people, and it's good that if you're a young kid, you understand what's going on, assess it, gather all of the information and say, it's worth the risk. This is what I was put on earth to do, and this is what I'm going to do with my life.
But are some of these young athletes, they go into the gym, they get into a sparring situation, they're in a smoker, they get themselves knocked out, or whatever happens, are they going right back into the gym, or are they just like, okay, a week later, I feel better, I'm getting back into the gym, opposed to going to the doctors to make sure that they're medically cleared to get back to training?
Yeah, you got to, whether it's people like us talking about fighting, whether it's coaches, whether it's anybody involved in the thing, our job is to let them know what the risks are and let them know what behaviors will protect them in the long run. And that, again, is something I think is a trend in this sport and this art that is different than football and different from other things, is we talk about these things head on, give you all of the information, and then you try to use it. But yeah, not everybody uses it. People feel they're indestructible. When you're young, you're crazy. These are realities of things. But you got to protect these guys, and you got to go in and monitor it, and we should really be looking at it closely forever in the sport.
If you're a guy like Tim Kennedy, are you just staying in shape all year round or close to 185 pounds as humanly possible as you're probably getting toward the end of your career? Because if a fight like Rashad falls apart, you got to be ready to take on whoever the next challenge is.
You say what you want about Tim Kennedy and the way he carries himself and the way he acts. He's a war hero. I don't know if that's accurate, but he's a heroic man as a military guy, and he's a hell of a fighter, and he's a hell of an athlete, and he's really fun to watch. And I think Tim Kennedy on any given night is somebody that will be a scary guy to get in the cage with.
Tim Kennedy awaits a new opponent for UFC 206 that is scheduled to go down in Toronto.